Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 45, the week of May 17th, 2024. My name's Drew Koenig. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mads Sassy. Mads, how we doing?
We're doing good. We're
good.
alive. We're kicking.
We are alive. We're doing good.
We're 2 weeks out from ATX. We're very excited.
That's true. We are quite excited. Who knows what that will bring, but...
Especially because they just announced another panel that I'm really interested in about body positivity in television, and Danielle, what's her face from Ghosts, is going to be on it.
Oh, okay. So the big piece of news that's been on everyone's mind this week is that big names in streaming are bundling.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Max, Disney Plus, and Peacock, I think, that's going to bundle into one. And then Apple TV, Paramount, and Netflix are bundling. Yeah. A little bit of what's being lost in translation here is that it is being bundled through Comcast. I think I heard Comcast and Xfinity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. I don't think it's quite as clean and cut as like a lot of people have been talking about, where like you can just get a bundle. You get a bundle if you have Comcast or Xfinity. We're still doing bundling. We're still doing cable again. We're just going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It is some of the most haphazard bundling, though. Like Netflix, Apple TV, and Peacock. You're just like, who do we got? Who do we got? Roll the dice.
Well, to be fair, okay, Peacock has taken over, like, the amount of stuff you can find on Peacock. You can find a lot of old sitcoms. I think I was telling you this before we, like, went on the air. Like, you can find a lot of old stuff on Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix is kind of going down in quality, in my opinion. It's not quite as often that you get a good show on Netflix. It's not always, a good show. It's hit or miss. Let's be real here. How much do we actually watch on Apple TV?
I mean, I feel like you and I watch a lot on Apple TV. I don't know how much the average person watches on Apple TV.
My watching of Apple TV has only increased because of this podcast.
Right. Well, I think Apple TV is a very, like, it's something that critics watch because it has the best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much, like, actual people watch Apple TV. Like, they maybe watch Ted Lasso and...
Yeah, I was gonna say I gave my friends my login recently because they're like, I haven't ever watched Ted Lasso, and I go, here you go watch it.
Yeah,
I was like, just be warned that the first 2 seasons are great, and the third season kind of goes off the rails a little bit. Just be forewarned.
yeah. So, like, people watch Ted Lasso and Severance, but, like, outside of those, I don't know what people are watching on Apple TV. But to the point about Peacock, a lot of the stuff that was on Netflix that, like, people would watch, like, especially, like, Gen Z kids would watch, like, The Office and Friends, or, Parks and Rec. That all went to Peacock.
Friends went to Max, but yeah, I get your sentiment.
Yes.
I get your, but still, like, yeah, most of it went to Peacock. You are very correct.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because I was holding off on getting rid of Max for the longest time because The Nanny was on it. That was a show that I grew up watching. I love it. I still love it to this day. It's no longer on Max. It's now on Peacock. And I'm just like, well, now I don't have to pay for Max anymore. I mean, my roommate still pays for it. But, like, I personally didn't want to pay Max because I'm pissed off at them canceling all their good television.
Right.
And so I was just like, well, fuck you, Max. So, but, yeah, like, I don't watch as much on Max anymore. I currently use it to watch a couple of the shows that we watch, but, like, I don't casually sit around and watch stuff on it anymore because the good stuff is over on Peacock.
Right. Yes.
Which is weird because when I first started paying for Peacock, I was like, I don't know why I'm paying for this. Like, I don't really watch anything on this. And look where we are.
The important thing I think that people should keep in mind about this is not a move of greed. This is a move of desperation.
You're right.
You do this because you are bleeding money, not because you want to add add to your bank balance. These streaming platforms are dying, and they are trying to recoup something. That's it. Let's not mistake this move for what it is.
Maybe you should stop having streaming services.
Yeah, maybe just let it die. In all honesty, maybe just let it die. In other news, Shogun, I was just thinking about this earlier. Shogun switched its eligibility from limited series for the Emmys to drama series. Because it is in the works to be renewed for 2 more seasons, despite the producers and writers insisting that they only had 1 season in mind.
Oh, okay. I mean, it was very well made. So like, I could see why they'd want to like hop that gravy train.
Yeah, this is following after the lead actor, but this is following Hiroyuki Sanada signed a deal to reprise his character as a Toranaga.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of writing on the wall, but it is interesting, and especially interesting from an Emmys perspective. The difference between a limited series and drama series is intention, and that's pretty much it. The rules for these award shows is absurd and bizarre. But as you said, Shogun was quite good. I look forward to more in that world. Let's go into the GOAT. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode and pit them against each other on a poll. We are still into our bracket. We are into the 3rd round now, and there have been some interesting developments. Vincent and the Doctor is leading over the Constant, which is not what I would have predicted, but not unworthy. Measure of a Man is fully bodying Josh's irrelevant. Like, there is no chance of a comeback.
Oh man!
I just want to let you all know there's no chance of a comeback.
Oh, it's that intense.
It's that intense. Donna Noble has a pretty significant lead over Raven Reyes, and 7 of 9 is leading over John Locke. Again, very deserved. Not what I think I would have predicted.
I'm curious if you had created the Tumblr account prior to the Styles Reyes matchup, if the voting would have gone differently.
The voting would be so different. Like, okay, I want to let everyone know. So over the week, I created a Tumblr account for the show. I've been posting TikToks, and I posted this bracket on there, and it was fairly normal at first. The bracket was fairly normal. Things were going about what I expected them to. And then Tumblr got their paws on this bracket, and it quickly went out of control. And we have what we have now. not exactly upsets, but not going the way I would have called it.
Yeah, I just know that my Tumblr has a tag for Styles Stilinski, and I know that he's constantly talked about. So I'm curious how differently. I know it would have gone differently, but I'm curious how differently it would have gone.
I think it would have gone wildly different, to the extent that I don't think Raven Reyes would have made it. There's still time left. Things could change. The interest of fandom is wide and varying and constantly changing. So,
and go vote.
Yeah, go vote. But yeah, next week is the last round. We'll have our final matchup between character and episode. And then that'll be that, and it'll be back to normal.
Were we ever normal?
That's a good point. I can only speak for myself and say, resoundingly no.
I definitely wasn't. So
we'll be
back to
our normal. And the plan is we won't do another bracket until to kind of coincide with the next March Madness.
Speaking of brackets, we're currently in the midst of the Telltale TV Awards over at Telltale, and as a member of Telltale, I get to behind the scenes vote on things that the people have nominated. And I just wanted to let you know, Drew, that I voted for Timothy Oliphant just for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You can go vote for these on wherever I get us up on all of our social platforms right now. Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, Tumblr, TikTok. Be sure to share, like, and encourage your friends to vote. So without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show.
Let me call you sweetheart. I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love me too. Keep the love like a
Flame Princess!
So for our first show, we are continuing our rewatch of Adventure Time. Season 9, episodes 2 through 9, entitled Elements. This is our next and last big mini-series that Adventure Time does. So we're coming straight off of Islands. What did you think about Elements?
There was a lot of bananas shit going on.
There's a lot going on.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
It was a lot. It was a lot. I watched it this morning, full disclosure, and it was fun. But I literally had to like really pay attention and be like, okay, I need to be making sure I take in all this information because it's going to be important in the next part, or if not the next part, then the part after that. Like it really made you pay attention and like take all the knowledge you've learned about Adventure Time up to this point and about the elements up to this point, and some of that got thrown out the window because this was insane. But like for the most part, like it was testing you and your knowledge of Adventure Time lore.
Right. Yeah, and I think this miniseries has a really interesting relationship with its lore of it's introducing and bringing back a lot of lore, but it's not important lore. You know, it's
elements.
It's elements lore, and it's a lot of obviously important to like the grander scheme of like but it's not important in like the grander scheme of like its own mythology.
It's funny, like we get to the part where we're learning about what is it, Space Princess?
Oh, Lumpy Space Princess, yeah.
Lumpy Space Princess, and you're like, and Finn is like, wait, why aren't you affected by this either? And then you're like, oh, well, because I am I'm from a different thing, and like, these elements don't affect me, and it's like, oh my god, I'm learning so much again. Like, I thought I knew everything. No, you don't. There's something new.
Well, it's interesting, you know, especially coming off of Islands, which felt so important to like the lore. Especially the lore of like Finn the human. And
yeah, here, like very important to him.
Yeah, and here it's less about the mythology and more about, hey, we have like this really strong roster of like secondary characters that we've acquired over like the last 9 seasons. Here they are in like wacky, kooky ways.
Yeah, I really especially liked seeing all of them as Candy. Like, I thought that was really fun. And Marceline is now Marshmalline, and I'm like, yes!
Okay.
It's a marshmallow.
I did love the moment of Jake and Finn trying to pronounce marshmallow, because that felt like a moment of the writers being like, okay, this was funnier being written down than pronounced.
Yes. But it also felt very real because it took me a few times to get the name right too. Like I'm like, you're very real for this. I also liked the bit with the other thing about this is that like yes, here's some of these side characters, like you get to see them in fun ways, but also like we get to see more of Betty and kind of see more about what Betty's about these days.
Right.
And we get to see like her dynamic with Simon slash Ice King and how there's the episode where they go on the date and she's frustrated because he doesn't remember anything, and then she realizes, oh, I should meet him where he's at, and it's like, oh, they're relearning each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the midst of chaos, they're relearning each other.
Yeah, and Betty recast as Felicia Day.
Mm-hmm.
So no more of Lena Dunham.
Oh darn.
Yeah, I've said this before, but Felicia Day I've just has a much better grasp on Betty as a character. See, it seems to understand like the inherent bigness of that character, like the big swings that character is.
Yeah.
It's like she's much better at like the bombast of like screaming and running around.
Angry Betty is so fun.
Oh, it's so great.
But also, like, the turn that Betty takes. Like, you're not expecting Betty to go, in a way, dark side. And you're just like, excuse me? What is going on here?
No, I love that shot of like Betty being like, I can like undo all of this, and you just see Prismo and Cosmic Owl being like, no,
please don't
do that.
They're like, can we stop for a moment and really think that through, please? Thank you.
You can just see Prismo being like, please don't give me another thing I have to fix.
Yeah, Prismo's like, listen, I want to retire. Thank you. Okay.
I've got enough crap going on. Yeah, but that Betty turn is so good. Like, it's the most. It's that point in character where it's like, it's the most natural thing a person would do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who is Betty would do what Betty does.
Right, and it's great to see, Finn discover that, that she's not exactly what he thought, and like the betrayal he has on his face when he's like, but wait, that's not the plan. Like, he doesn't know how to handle it. He's like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, this isn't what we planned for.
But structurally, I really like these episodes because just like the weird progression of like, first you lose BMO, and then you lose Jake, and then you lose Finn, which was the most shocking, and then it's like LSP is the hero. And you're like, how did we get here, and where are we going from here?
And I liked that it took you through the different quote unquote elements in order to get to that, through the loss of these characters. Like, it was for different elemental reasons. And I think probably my favorite section of this miniseries was the fire elemental section of it. That's where we lose Finn. And I love that it became that they all turned to blue flame, because I remembered in science that blue flames were the hottest and the most volatile. And I was like, that is so freaking cool. Like, the writers, they are just so amazing.
Yes.
They think of everything.
It's very good.
And yeah, and then we have the real hero is not Finn or Jake like we expected, but LSP.
I feel like we have to talk about the inherent creepiness of Princess Bubblegum.
Absolutely.
Giving one of the most unsettling renditions of Let Me Call You Sweetheart that I have ever heard.
Oh my god, like, no, I don't ever want to hear that song ever again. And I actually like have positive connotations to that song based on anyway, growing up I watched this mini series for Anne of Green Gables, and they do a continuation series that's her all grown up with her, husband, whatever, and he gets sent off to the war, blah blah blah, whatever. And she sings that song to find him. And so like I had a positive connotation to that song, and now I'm like never want to hear that song ever again. I'm good.
At least not sung by Hendon Welch. No, thank you.
No. But like I think even hearing the normal version of it, I will still like think of creepy, big, puffy cloud Princess Bubblegum commanding and manipulating everyone below by singing this song. Like, it's fine. But it was great. It was a fantastic miniseries. I kind of grumbled a little knowing how many episodes I'd have to watch, but in the end, I was like, you know what? I was very compelled with this.
And we have to talk about the stinger at the end with Big Blue Jake.
Big Blue Jake. Yeah. Yes.
Weird. Seems like we're getting into secret and mysterious origins of Jake the dog and his weird, stretchy stuff.
Also made me think that we're getting into more sci-fi stuff, and I'm like, this could be interesting. I mean, he looks like an alien, a very creepy alien, but he looks like an alien. It's the eyes. It's literally the eyes. They freak me out. I was like,
it's the eyes and the color.
I don't know if it's the color necessarily for me. Definitely the eyes, though.
I feel
freak me out.
Because I feel like Adventure Time has put like a lot of detail to like Jake can only shapeshift into yellow things. Like he can't do other colors. And so now to have a blue Jake is not right. It's not right.
I don't know. I just know that the eyes made me think of spiders, and I don't like spiders, so
yeah.
So I was like, no, thank you.
No.
I don't want it. Take it back. But like, Finn seems to be accepting of it, so it's like, okay, maybe this doesn't freak him out. Which raises the question of, has he seen this before?
Well, I think the end of Elements has a Finn who has seen so many of his friends turn into weird things that he doesn't know how to handle. That he's at a place where he's like, okay, I fixed the other stuff, I can fix this.
Gotcha.
We can get through this part. Like, I've seen multiple versions of like family and loved ones. we can figure this out. So our episodes for next week. We have episode 10, Abstract, episode 11, Catch Up, and episode 13, Whispers. Next up, we have Dimension 20, season 2, episode 6, The Tomb of Evil. This is the season finale of Escape from Bloodkeep. So what did you think of this?
It was a very exciting conclusion to the season. I also want to comment that my favorite thing about this entire episode was all the times that Brennan mind was blown by either a choice that someone made or a role that someone got. Like, he was not expecting a certain kind of role, and it happens. And then, there's the whole, like, my favorite one is when Marcus jumps into the abyss with Oleg and then decides to stab himself in order to teleport back. And he's just like, excuse me, what? Oh, I wouldn't have even thought of that. Like, the look on Brennan's face was just pure shock and excitement, because he was like, ooh, this is getting interesting. Like, this isn't what I expected, but it's a good, I wasn't expecting it. I just love Brennan. Brennan's great. He's his own character for whatever campaign.
Well, like the only thing better than that was Caitlyn being like, "Oh, that's how you play a rogue."
Right.
That's how you play a rogue.
There's also a part in the episode where whatever character Brennan was voicing at the time was like, wait a minute, can I have this back? Like, can I have the blessing back? You didn't do that correct. Like, whatever. You didn't really die. And they're like, oh, you thought we were going to be good because we hugged? We are evil. Like, I forget who it was. I forget his name, but the one that does Jeremiah and
Oh yeah.
what's it called? But like it was so funny. Just the delivery of, we're evil. You thought we were good because we hugged. It's just so great.
Well, like one of the best things about this episode, and this is a true testament to this season, is that we were emotionally invested in the survival of one of Lilith's little spider children.
Yes.
Like when he was about to eat it, I was like, no, he can't. He's okay. He has to be okay.
I was like, no, he can't. And even Lilith was invested. She was like, excuse me, no, like whereas at the beginning of the season, when we first got introduced to Lilith, she's very much of the vein of, oh well, I got hundreds of children, it's fine if one of them dies, like whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are at the end, and she's like, don't die.
Kudos to both Brennan and Erica for getting us emotionally invested in that, because that is not a small feat.
Also, kudos to Leland Jr. for saving the day. The baby. We have to keep reminding ourselves that Leland Jr. is a baby.
It's a baby.
And like
he's 5 minutes old.
He's like 5 minutes old, but he's doing big stuff. Also, Leland was killing it this episode.
Oh,
like
for
Leland.
A season where Matt Mercer was not rolling well, was not doing a good job. He did he did really good.
Yeah, he was killing it. And it was funny because Brennan was getting excited because Brennan was like, yes, he's like, that's it, you just had to get out from under the shadow of this lord that was not actually good for you. That's what's happened. Like he made it into the story as to why Leland was suddenly amazing at being a warrior.
But yeah, I loved how the season concluded with all these characters. Again, it makes sense that Leland would end up as the number 2 to Leland Jr. and F-Inc. being just the wet woman in the dungeon.
Which is what she wants.
It's what she wants. It's good. Being forced to spend eternity with Olak, who can never die. Yeah. It's a perfect end to that character. Maggie in this place of importance, and Iffy getting to go off and reconquer his kingdom with John Feathers.
Well, I like that Maggie's little diatribe that she does at one point in the episode where she's like, it's obvious that I'm meant to do something like this because I've been surrounded by evil with my dad and my husband and now my child. Mm. She's like, and yet I'm still not wanting to be that, fully committed to that. And it's like, oh, yeah. Yes, you were meant to have this role overall in the end.
And the thing we have to mention is Leland getting to finally go and kill Gafet's Hamhead eventually.
Yes. The way they all cheered about the head, that's the best part too.
Yes, yes.
They're like, yes, the head.
I don't know if we'll ever see a season 2 of Escape from the Bloodkeep, because the season 2 would have to answer implications of evil people in power and actually kill Galfast Hamhead, because you can't just keep on not killing.
Right.
As funny as that is, I doubt we'll ever see season 2 though. We could, but I doubt it.
I mean, we don't need to, though.
We don't need to. I think this leaves it at a very good place. But next week, or whatever the next time we talk about Dimension 20, which should be fairly soon, hopefully next week, we will be back with our intrepid heroes.
Yay!
With the Unsleeping City, which was the third season. So we're following chronologically. We're not really jumping around.
Mm-hmm.
But Unsleeping City, which is I would say right behind Fantasy High, is like the best campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very fun. It's what if New York, but also magic.
Okay.
So it's this big love letter to New York. Let's jump to Doctor Who, quote unquote, season 1, episode 1 and 2, Space Babies and the Devil's Chord. They can keep calling it season 1 if they want to.
I don't understand why they've done this.
I don't know why we're doing this.
I don't. Why are it's so one? It annoys me because I have to put 2024 after the word Doctor Who when I go to search episodes and things like that on Google. But also, like, it doesn't. I guess because he's split, but that's dumb.
It doesn't make sense.
It's unnecessary. It's whatever.
Like, it made sense to restart the season count in 2005 because there was a big gap between Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
But this,
yep,
we just did this. We just did Doctor Who.
Yeah, and like, is it because we got Russell T Davies back? Is that why we're doing this? But like, that's still stupid because like you have no need to do it. Like,
maybe
no need to. I don't know.
Maybe it's the Disney Plus of it all.
Maybe because it's on Disney Plus and it's a Disney Plus / BBC entity. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, you know what?
That's whatever.
So Space Babies.
Speaking of, this is before we get into the episode itself. Speaking of us pronouncing Gatwa's name correctly, even he has been pronouncing it incorrectly.
Oh yes, I saw this.
He did a video recently where he said that he's like, I've always thought it was Shuti, and he goes, my mother goes, no, it's Nushuti, and it's just like, well, if we've been getting it wrong and you've been getting it wrong, then are we all right? But it's really funny that he wasn't even pronouncing his own name correctly. Like, anyway, it doesn't matter. We can continue. We can go talk about Space Babies.
Yeah, let's talk about Space Babies.
Or the creepiest thing I've ever seen. Nah, that's not necessarily the creepiest thing I've ever seen, but it's up there. It's up there. It's up there. They're talking dolls. It's creepy.
We have an episode with a big slimy monster, and the thing that Mads can't get over is there were talking babies.
Okay, listen, the boogie monster was not the freakiest looking monster I've ever seen. Like, I've seen worse. Okay? The freaking babies were creepy. The way they turned their head and like their mouths and eyes moved, I'm like, that's AI shit. Like, stop that. Stop. And like, it annoyed me that the doctor and Ruby were just like, oh my god, you're so cute. And I'm like, no, they're not.
I mean, they were pretty cute. I'm gonna have to diverge from you here because they were pretty cute.
No. No, I will never agree with you. I find dolls creepy, okay? And they remind me of dolls. It just, no. It was a big no. Like, the story was compelling and interesting, but, like, the babies were not. Also, I think it's really cute that the ship made a monster out of their boogies. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Great.
I think,
concept.
Yeah, I think it's a fine episode. It's very much, here's some hard sci-fi while we try to figure out how to characterize this new doctor as we kind of get adjusted here. So like that felt fine. Right. This is like the thing that Doctor Who always does, so that's fine. This is like the breathing episode.
Yeah, they lean heavy into, okay, here's the science fiction of it all, not adding in any of the magic or any of the time traveling and stuff. It's just, here is some hard science fiction. It's going to test both of these characters so we get to see what they're about, and it tells a good story. But, it's not going to be like, oh, this is the best story they've ever told.
Yeah, I think it's made a little lesser because it's paired up with the Devil's Chord.
Right.
Which is just
also
doing a lot more.
Right. I do want to say I did enjoy the wink wink nudge nudge commentary on women's rights that they did in this episode. Where they're like, "Oh, we think in on your planet it would be different." She's like, "Oh, not really." Cuz even on our planet they force us to have children but then don't care to take care of them.
Well, and that's the thing. I think if this episode does anything really right, it is to sell everyone on Millie Gibson as Ruby, because she's so good. Like,
she really is.
She's so charismatic and funny, just intensely lovable. There's a scene of her running down the hallway after one of the babies, just screaming, and it's like, oh, this is very good.
Yeah, and she's definitely a compassionate and caring person, and we really get to see that with how she handles the situation with the babies. Generally, people are going to be more kind to young children, but she just has a knack for it. She literally has a very soothing nature about her, and I think that's going to really come into play in the various shenanigans they get themselves into.
What I wanted to mention, to go to our point about this being, season 1, the way that this, especially at the beginning, the doctor talking about all of the Gallifrey stuff and all of the Time Lord stuff, and it's like, oh, this is we are trying to write a new show. We are aggressively trying to write a new show.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, we're gonna act like people don't know this information.
That is a weird swing to make. I understand trying to make a jumping on point for new people, but Doctor Who has often had really solid jumping on point. It's the reason you regenerate. It's the reason you bring in new doctors. Every regeneration is a kind of soft reboot in and of itself. So it is a little weird, and we need to go back to Eccleston, of the Doctor's alone. The Doctor doesn't have any Time Lord people. There's no Gallifrey. Which I know this has kind of been built up for a while. The peaks and valleys of the Doctor has no one. Oh, Gallifrey's back. Oh, Gallifrey's gone. Oh, Gallifrey's back. is constantly weird. And I think especially the emphasis here where it hasn't been for a while. We haven't really had the hammer at this point home for quite a while. We didn't hear any of this during the David Tennant run. It's oh, we are really trying to drive this point forward. As I said, I think the Devil's Chord is just a stronger, more compelling episode.
It really is, because it really ties back in the Toy Maker.
Yeah.
Or Game Maker. Or is it Toy Maker or Game Maker?
Toy Maker.
I think it's Toy Maker. But then after I said it, I was like, is that correct? I feel like I'm wrong. And it's one of those things that you think about something long enough or look at something long enough and you're like, that's not correct.
Right.
But also just Jinx Monsoon, perfect casting.
It's excellent.
Perfect casting.
And
so good.
That's kind of the thing that really pushes over the edge, because this is an episode that has a really strong villain with a larger than life performance. Jinx Monsoon is legitimately terrifying in a way that I don't feel like Doctor Who has been for a while.
I truly didn't think the Doctor was going to be able to defeat this character, this villain, Maestro. I truly thought Maestro was going to take away all the music in the world.
And to couch all of that in this, hey, let's go see the Beatles.
Right. But also, that's the funny thing, is that the thing that ends up saving them is John and Paul. What? That is the most wild Doctor Who thing I have ever scene in my life, and I loved it.
Listen, the only thing that could have made that better is if instead of John and Paul, they had brought in Ringo to save the day.
It would have been way better as Ringo, yeah. It would have been
just for Ringo's place in like the public consciousness. Having Ringo save the day would be the funniest thing Doctor Who could have done. Overall, this episode just and it's one of those things where like sci-fi will be like, hey, what if this thing didn't exist or contrary did exist? And there's a part of our brain that like can't wrap our minds around that, which like elevates it into this place of horror, you know? Like the human brain isn't designed to not understand, like to have music as like this absence. So to be like, hey, music either doesn't exist or is this dumb, stupid, evil thing, is antithetical on like a base primal level for like people, which really helps to like drive home like how horrifying this episode is. And then just there's a way that Jinx Monsoon gets out of a piano that is otherworldly.
It's creepy as hell.
Not extraterrestrial, but like demonic.
Yeah, but like it's so captivating. Like because you're like, first of all, your brain's like, how the fuck did they fit in there? And then it turns into, oh my god, that face is terrifying. Like, what the fuck? Like, could you imagine that popping up out of a piano while you're playing it? Like, what the fuck?
The delivery and execution of Jinx Monsoon getting out of a piano is done in the same way of like a monster reveal in a horror movie. And it fully plays that way. It's that moment in a horror movie where you're seeing something that will kill you, and you're seeing it in like fractions. Like you're seeing like the slow reveal, and there's something about that that's more terrifying.
I just did not when they announced that Jinx Monsoon was going to be part of Doctor Who, I was like, I don't really know, because it's one of those things that like in the world of Broadway it's called stunt casting, where it felt like they were putting in a face that people from a different demographic knew to kind of try and bring in more of a varied audience. And I'm like, but are they going to be good at a formal acting thing? And holy crap, they're really good.
Yeah. But let's also be fair. The Venn diagram of people who watch Doctor Who and also watch RuPaul's Drag Race is fully a circle. So it's not a huge leap.
I know, but you know that's what the writers and them were thinking. They're like, maybe there's some people we've never tapped into before.
Right.
It's like, oh honey, we're already been there. We already been there. We're the people that are not just watching RuPaul's Drag Race. We're also watching Dragula and all these other drag shows. Like you're not getting any new people.
Also, I want to say the people who have been annoyed at Ruby reusing a line that I think was said by Martha, nerds are the most annoying people on the planet and will complain about anything. Why? You are complaining about a trope. Like this, like the how can X years still be alive when I'm right here is a trope of time travel storytelling.
Right.
Like
don't
Doctor Who didn't invent that.
Right. It's funny that you say that, because like while we were talking prior to hitting the record button, I was scrolling through socials in search of something else and saw the initial reactions to this week's episode. And apparently the doctor references something that Smith's doctor did, and it's like, people don't get upset about that, but if a companion references something that another companion said, oh my god, hats are off. It's so weird. It's such a weird dynamic. It's so annoying.
Let's move on to our next show. Interview with the Vampire, Season 2, Episode 1. What can the damned really say to the damned?
So good.
Yeah, it's excellent.
And I was nervous with them recasting Claudia. I was nervous because I'm like, I've seen, obviously it happens, stuff happens, but like I was nervous that the dynamic between Louis and Claudia wasn't going to be the same. But and it's not quite the same, but like I feel like it's so much better. She's so much better at getting Claudia's snark across in the right way. That makes it a nice little bit of humor in the midst of dark and disturbing events.
Right.
And I like it.
Well, like, I feel like it's not the same by design, you know? Like,
Mm-hmm. Right.
the whole point of their current dynamic is they've been traveling through Europe for so long that they have become drained and almost dehumanized and have grown to hate each other. And the fact that Claudia is a different person, like literally a different person, I think drives that home really well.
It does, yeah.
More than just like the snark, really embodying an almost manic nature to the character.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is really necessary for this part of the story, particularly for like the post New Orleans, pre Paris part. Yeah, that's all really good, and I think the show is still managing to balance the interview stuff with the flashback stuff, and this especially getting more into like the shaky nature of Louis' memories.
Yeah, and the thing that I've said to my friends about this episode in particular is that Jacob Anderson is so good at about having that balance between being aloof enough to be, I guess, cold-hearted, but not really cold-hearted, just cynical towards humans, but also still in touch enough with emotion to have that full on fucking breakdown that he has with during the interview where he's not sure of his own memories, of his own mind.
Right.
And that's such a compelling bit of acting from him, and then for him and Armand to go off alone together during their break, and for him to say to Armand, he's like, please give me back those pages. And he's like, well, it's not important to the interview. He goes, but it's important to me. Like, I need to be aware of what I'm not currently secure about. And it's just a vulnerability that Louis doesn't present to the outside world that Anderson is still able to tap into when it's needed.
There's a balancing act of earnestness and still fully unreliable narrator, where I don't feel like one is giving way to the other. And I think that's really impressive. But yeah, and I really like the just overall griminess of the episode. Strangers in a strange land, but the land is dirty and gross and awful.
Yeah, and it's in the middle of a war. They're, having to navigate the politics of that, pretending to be human, but also needing sustenance to stay alive. It's just a lot of moving pieces that one wrong move could be the end of them. And it's just so exciting to watch that and to see Louis still have problems with letting go of Lestat. We see him thinking about him, and Claudia calls him out on it all the time. And it's very interesting to see. I'm interested to see where he stops. You know what I mean? Because eventually, obviously, it stops being something to him because he's been with Armand for 70 years. So obviously, at some point, he's able to let go. But I'm also really compelled to see them interacting with the old world vampires, because we know it's on the horizon. We know that's what's coming.
Right.
And I'm very intrigued to see that play out.
Well, let's move on to our next show, because we'll have plenty to talk about with Interview with the Vampire this season. I caught up. Well, not caught up, because the last episode of the season just aired, and I watched it earlier today. Sugar on Apple TV Plus. So I'm trying to decide how to talk about this show.
Is this the one with Colin Farrell?
It is the one with Colin Farrell. So
okay,
there's a basic way of talking about the show, which is Colin Farrell plays a private detective of sorts who finds missing people, and he's tracked to find the granddaughter of this very famous Hollywood director who has gone missing, has had trouble with drugs in the past. Everyone just thinks she's off on a bender, and he's trying to figure out what has happened to her over the course of these 8 episodes. And he's very much a movie buff, so you have like interstitials of like actual movie clips over scenes that are happening, which is a very interesting visual touch. So that's the basic way of talking about this show. Around the 6th or 7th episode, the show makes a hard pivot and swerves violently into another genre altogether. It's still staying in like a neo-noir kind of vein, but it's also something else entirely. And I don't want to give it away for anyone who hasn't caught up with Sugar yet, but it is perhaps one of the most absurd and audacious twists that I've seen in a while. Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. It's just the most bizarre show. Colin Farrell is doing really good work as this kind of weirdo. It's a cinephile weirdo who can't get drunk, and yeah, he keeps on drinking with this lady friend, platonic lady friend of his, and he just can't get drunk, and it's very amusing. Where like everyone else around him is just getting blitzed. If you watch, here's the thing: if you watch from the beginning, knowing that there's a twist, you probably can figure out what the twist is. I have no idea if this was an effective twist or not. This is the point I'm at, where I keep going back to it, and I'm like, does it actually work or not? And I don't know. But what I will say is that the end of the season sets it up nicely for a second season, for an interesting direction. That's what I'll say. I have no idea what to make this show. A little bit. I don't know that it's good, but it was interesting most of the time. The PI stuff is kind of, it's very there. It's very just a little bit north of blah. But they're good performances. Eric Lang from Lost, who played Radzinski on Lost, does a very good stint as a antagonist. He's very menacing, and they're fun performances throughout this. Anything I've said interests you, go check it out. If not, I don't know that you would be missing a lot outside of maybe a tiny bit of discourse.
I honestly haven't seen anybody talk about it, so I keep forgetting.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I kept hearing people, like, I know, like, Alan Sepinwall talked about the twist in, like, a kind of macro way. So, like, I knew something was coming, and I knew something would recontextualize the show and push it in, like, a different direction, but I didn't know what it was. So I was kind of waiting for it, and then it was like, huh, okay. That kind of thing.
Right.
So let's move on to Manhunt, which I finally caught up on Apple TV, which we talked about earlier a few weeks ago on the podcast. And I think overall it was fine.
Yeah, it wasn't anything groundbreaking in my eyes.
There were things I liked about it. I think Tobias Menzies gives a really stellar performance as Edwin Stanton. I still don't like Abraham Lincoln in this. It's bad. It's not good.
No. Anthony Boyle also does a fantastic job as John Wilkes Booth. I think that dynamic is really good. They're the two most compelling parts of this for obvious reasons, and I feel like some of the other stuff gets very muddled because I feel like they go on too long about things that they shouldn't and don't give enough about things they should. I don't know. It was just it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. I was kind of in the middle. Like, I think overall I would have rated it probably like 3.5 stars for the whole season. Like, it was okay, you know. There were performances that were really good. I felt like I was validated in remembering things that I'd learned in history class. But also still felt like I learned a few new things. Like, yeah, I think Stanton is probably the part of it that I really like the most, which is crazy considering this is all about John Wilkes Booth and the search for him after he's killed the president. And I'm like, yeah. Can we go back to the director of war guy? Can we go back to him? Because I need to talk. I want to watch him. So Tobias Menzies, hats off to you. You did a fantastic job.
I think on a larger scope, the show is about how John Wilkes Booth basically fucked the country for like decades.
Yeah.
Because he killed Abraham Lincoln, which like halted Reconstruction in a lot of ways, and sort of kind of killed Edwin Stanton.
Yeah, so like that's the part that's really interesting because, like, you know, especially in that final episode, it dives more into the repercussions of this event, and you know, you find out more about like Edwin Stanton being asked to kind of back down from Reconstruction stuff, and he's like, "Nah, bro, that's what all this is about. Like, this is what Lincoln and I worked hard for. I'm not going to back down from it." We see, you know, if Abraham Lincoln had lived, the Reconstruction would have gone on perfectly fine because that's exactly what he wanted to. Whereas Johnson is just like, let's just move forward. Let's just settle things down, make everybody happy. And it's like, no, we need to like fix things.
So yeah, it is a thing of like, if Abraham Lincoln had lived, maybe we would be in a lot better. Maybe not, but maybe we would. With Andrew Johnson, who the show characterizes as possibly one of the worst things that's ever happened to this country. And John Wilkes Booth is the facilitator of that. And the only reason we had any advancement at all is because Edwin Stanton is one of the pettiest motherfuckers that's ever lived.
Absolutely. Ugh. Locking himself in that office, like, I'm like, yes, bitch. Like, yes. He's like, oh no, this ain't happening. And I was just like, fuck yes.
Could never happen today.
No, they would have knocked that door down and been like, get the fuck out. But also, it just makes me sad because, like, you know, Stanton could have changed so much in our country, but his health issues were exacerbated by the stress of everything that happened post Lincoln. And it's just like, fucking A. Like, he was inches from the Supreme Court, and nope. And then he died.
What, even like if Andrew Stanton had lived in a different time, like literally just a few decades later, he would have been fine. It is a little bit absurd to imagine that like the Secretary of Defense, which is basically what the Secretary of War was, to be like, and I can make policy, I can like inform policy decisions. Like, that's absurd. Like, no one would expect that from the Secretary of Defense now. So it's like it is like the greatness of Edwin Stanton that like really pushes this through. And I do like bits of that last episode where it's like his marriage was doomed no matter what. Because like that, there's that runner in towards the beginning of the season where it's like his wife just like deuces and is out of there.
Yeah.
And then you never see Ann Dudek again.
Yeah.
For reasons that is never acknowledged or really makes sense. But that last episode being like, yeah, she probably would have left anyway. Because Lincoln was not letting go of that man.
And it's one of those dynamics that history rarely talks about. You know, kind of like, again, this is just because I am a big, huge nerd for the Kennedy era of our American history. But like, just like the dynamic with John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, the policies they came up with together, like, is similar to Stanton and Lincoln. Like, those dynamics only come around once in a blue moon. And the history and world changing events they could have created together. Lincoln was his work wife. Come on.
That's true. That is true. That is 100% true. But by the end of this felt more like a strong actor showcase than an actual effective drama that occasionally did interesting things or said interesting things. I will definitely remember Tobias Menzies when we're talking about like best actors at the end of the year, though.
And honestly, again, I kept saying this when we first started talking about Manhunt when it first came out, was that he reminds me of Tommy Lee Jones. That's what it was. I was like, he very much, like, that's what I was reminded of when I first saw Stanton on screen. And like, that's phenomenal because I love Tommy Lee Jones. I think he's a phenomenal actor. And Tobias Menzies does that. He compels you. He makes you want to know more about him. He makes you stop and listen, and that is a truly beautiful performance. Mm-hmm. Definitely be on the list for end of the year top performances of the year.
Let's move on to our next show. Pretty Little Liars Summer School, episode 3, chapter 16, Sweet 16. So I always like to think of this incarnation of Pretty Little Liars, original sin in Summer School, as being the horror equivalent of Pretty Little Liars.
Yep.
And that comes through so effectively, particularly at the end of this episode, which really not devolves, but turns into a claustrophobic slasher movie, which is some of the scariest TV I've seen in a while.
Up to this point, like, it's just been the same kind of stuff that the Liars dealt with on the original series, where, you know, they're getting the weird posts online about them, the weird text messages, the anonymous phone calls. Like, that's all that's really been happening so far this season up to this point. Like, they're nervous, and a lot of it is played off very well with their just general anxiety, having survived the slasher previously. And so, like, you're like, okay, well, maybe this isn't really happening. Like, they're just hyping things up that are unnecessarily hyped up. You know what I mean? But then we get to Mouse being kidnapped, and you're like, oh, no, this shit's real. Like, there is really someone after these girls.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. Completely terrifying.
Well, I like so much this episode as the girls being convinced that their survival instincts, not even just as survivors of trauma, but just as young women, are wrong. Mm-hmm. And then getting to the point where it's like, no, I'm accurate to be feeling this way. I'm valid to be feeling this way. And I should continue to feel this way.
Yep.
I should continue to have these feelings because they're right. Because they will keep me alive, not even just as someone who's been stalked by a serial killer, but just as women.
Like, I especially keep thinking of the scene with Imogen in the ice cream shop, and she's warning this other girl that he's a player and that he doesn't give a shit about her, and that girl, like, gets angry at her, and it's like, girl, she just saved you so much time and heartbreak.
Mhm.
Like, why are you angry at her? Um, she and like I think I really love this group of girls because they're so yes, they have their own anxieties. Yes, they have their own fears because of what they've been through and what they have had to experience as young girls. But they're also very vocal about their experiences. You know, we've got Tabby who like has this idea that I'm going to get revenge on my rapist by making a film about it, and I'm not going to back down too much from presenting that film to the world. Like, yes, she does make it private online, but then she does a screening of it at the local cinema.
Mhm.
You know, she's like, I'm not going to like hide it away just because his mommy doesn't want to see what is real about her son. Like, that takes such a level of strength that most young women probably don't have. And I just the writing is so well done for these female characters, and I appreciate that.
I also enjoy the paranoia.
Mhm.
We're introducing a lot of like not just like potential partners, but like outside people that like the girls are
Mhm.
being paired with. You know, where you like have Noah and Jed, or Imogen and the Johnny at the ice cream place,
Mhm.
or Tabby and Christian. Where you're like, are these guys, are these people on the level, or are they up to something?
Trust no man. That's literally what this show is telling us.
Or
It's
trust
saying,
no one. Like even in the case of Jen, of like you should
right,
have your
right,
guard up.
but absolutely though, but like that's immediately what I thought when Christian showed up. I was like, don't trust him.
No.
And then Johnny shows up and I'm like, don't trust him. Like, and as a person who presents as female in the world, it's very easy for me to understand these girls questioning every man that comes into their life, especially Imogen and Tabby, because they have been assaulted by someone they thought they could trust. That's hard to reconcile with. And so, like, it's understandable that Tabby sees that mask that he created based on the website articles about this serial killer, and like she's running the opposite direction. It's like, good girl, run the opposite direction. That's suspicious. That's weird.
Mhm.
Like um but also, is it just me or do you not trust Dr. Sullivan either? Like, I've never
No.
trusted Dr. Sullivan.
No.
I've never trusted her.
No, that is a very good suspect. Yeah, I don't trust Dr. Sullivan at all. I think she's very comforting, and I like that actress, but
I don't know, there's just something under the surface that just gives me a slight ick.
no.
That I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I can't trust you, woman. I cannot trust you. The other thing I wanted to mention about this show is that I love that the website is called Spooky Spaghetti, which is such a play on creepy pasta,
Mhm.
and I love it. I'm obsessed. There was someone on Twitter that was like, let's do a drinking game for every time they say spooky spaghetti.
You would be dead. You would die.
Right. Someone else was like, I'd rather keep my liver, thank you. Especially because Mouse says it every other word.
Oh my
So it's
god.
like, all right, girl.
Gotta stop. I do like this the show continuing to drive home the fact that Ash is the only partner that we can trust ever. They're the only
Yeah,
one
he's so
beyond
sweet.
reproach.
Yeah, they're great. I didn't think Grandma was ever gonna get creepy, and then she's like, I have to drop you off for this special surprise. And I'm like, girl, don't trust that.
No, no.
I was immediately like, girl, don't trust it. She seems possessed. And I know that's not the realm of this show. Like, possessions are not the realm of this show, but I was literally like, are you sure there ain't a ghost or a demon inside that woman? Like, possessing her?
Another thing I will say is that Noah and Jen do not have the chemistry that I would hope for. I have not seen
Mm-hmm.
online gay people nope out of a ship this quickly.
Yeah, I think it doesn't help that the moment Jen shows up, I'm just like, no. I just was like, no.
No.
just I there's no there's no personal chemistry between the actresses, it doesn't feel. And also it just doesn't feel like Jen is being genuine in any way. So like how can we ship that if we can't even trust that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot working against it. Both like the cheating bisexual trope and then which is definitely like it hasn't explicitly said that, but the subtext is almost text. We're supposed to distrust Jen. We're once supposed to think there's something here, but also we're supposed to distrust her, which I think the chemistry could play into that. But I think this relationship needs more like space to breathe.
Yeah, of course.
So I think it needs to be better set up because like they set up Sean, but now Sean's not here. He's just not here for reasons that are not disclosed. I don't know. So I think Jen could be an interesting pair with Noah, but it's just not currently there. Let's move on to X-Men 97, episode 10, Tolerance is Extinction part. So I will first I'll say this is very, very good. Also, X-Men 97 has some of the most uneven politics that I have seen on screen this year, and we just watched Girls on the Bus.
Yes.
It cannot decide if Xavier's politics are wrong and foolhardy or laudable and something we should try to reach for. It tries to do both of those things at the same time, and I just don't think you can do that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where in the face of genocide, there's no such thing as a reasonable approach, as we all have learned. When you have mass extinction of people versus I'm a good person and I'm gonna do the kind thing, like one wins out. You know, like I love good kindness television as much as the next person, probably more, but this was not this was not the story for that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw people talking about the episode online before I actually watched it, and people were very excited about it and thought it was great. And I don't know, I watched it and I was just like, okay, why are we continuing this? Like I just it I left I ended up feeling confused a bit because, and we discussed this last week with the whole continuing to feel like all they know how to do with X and Magneto is to make them hate each other, which doesn't fully sit with their lore and their, and their relationship. So it's like they continue that with this episode, and I don't know. I wasn't that impressed by this episode.
there are things I liked about it. Like, I like that they didn't even bother to confirm or deny like what Wolverine's status is. He's just there and lying, and maybe he'll be okay, and maybe he won't. Like, I like the squishiness of that idea. You know, like don't even bother. We're not even gonna bother to address that.
Right.
We're gonna think about that some more on the off season.
I did appreciate that at the end there was like, you see the screens with all these people, all these mutants that are quote unquote missing or off world, and I appreciated that it's like, okay, it's setting this up for another season for them to be found wherever they end up, and I like that we got to see where some of them ended up, and some of it's freaky weird.
Some of it's freaky weird.
But that they are still able to connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was the other thing that was kind of strange, but also kind of cool.
I think I said this a couple weeks ago. The only villains that X-Men really knows how to do is Magneto, Mr. Sinister, and Apocalypse. And we're doing Apocalypse again.
Yep.
Like, that's the thing in Egypt. Like, we're just doing Apocalypse again. But no, I did like the board of mutants. And it's like, Scarlet Witch is off-world. It's like, why is Scarlet Witch off-world?
Well, what isn't Wanda doing off-world?
That's a good point.
I feel like that's really what we should be asking. Like, what isn't Wanda doing right now? I did appreciate a little bit this 3-episode arc for bringing in other Marvel characters to this show. And we see a bit more of that with this episode. You know, we see Daredevil, we see
Cloak and Dagger.
we see we see Captain America again, we see Iron Man. So, like, we see that these people are all interconnected. So it's nice to have that little bit of, you know, if you're a Marvel nerd like I am. Like, I was just like, oh, it's nice to see these characters.
Right. It does make me wonder about, like, the intention of that, of, like, why are we including Marvel people? Is it just to include Marvel people? Which, if that's what it is, that's fine.
I mean,
I'm okay with that.
Is it because we're at war and we're like, okay, well, we're going to harm everyone that has special abilities, not just mutants?
Right.
Because in a way, the other Marvel superheroes could be classified under mutant. So, like, it makes sense, like, when they were, you know, they're at war. But, like, yeah, if we're just doing it just for the sake of, hey, here's some cameos, fine. But if we're doing it to bring in a bigger, more complex story, I'm intrigued to find out what that is.
Right. Yeah. And I saw one tweet of like, of course, Iron Man and Captain America are just standing around doing nothing because
absolutely
in the 90s you couldn't pay someone to read an Avengers comic. And you're like, yeah, that's right. So some people were upset that, like, Black Panther is T'Chaka instead of T'Challa, and I fully don't care about that at all.
No, one of those things of, like, pick your battles.
Yeah, like, if you didn't tell me that was T'Chaka, I would not know. Even though apparently, like, T'Challa was set up in, like, the Fantastic Four animated show, which is set in, like, the same universe, and I just don't care. I just
okay, but
okay.
Here's the thing about Black Panther. Black Panther has been multiple people over the years. Who's to say what year we're in? Who the fuck, like, what, like, that's the other thing. What universe are we in? What, you know, because it could be an alternate reality. Like, people need to calm down.
Yeah,
just sit down.
Fully don't
sit down.
I did like acknowledging that Cloak and Dagger exists.
Yes.
Which Marvel loves to pretend that they don't.
I was so disappointed that the show for Cloak and Dagger didn't take off.
Cloak and Dagger was really good. I don't know what to tell people. Let's move on to our last show here. Abbott Elementary, Season 3, Episode 13, Smith Playground. Which is just a big bundle of fun. It's just...
It really is.
God, they're so petty.
Oh my god, I love it when the pettiness comes out because that's them at their best. And I love that for a show that's set in an elementary school, the children get disregarded way too often.
Like, immediately.
They're immediately disregarded. They're like, let's take you guys on a field trip and then forget that we're on a field trip. Like, let's do that, shall we? And I love at the end where they're like, wait a minute. Wait, where are the kids? And they're like, oh, look, they didn't need us after all. And it's like, excuse me. These children range in age from, like, 5 to, like, 10. Like, what? Are you out of your minds? Like, like, come on. Oh man, I love them so much. Just all of them.
Just maniacs.
Doing a relay race, I can't. Also, can we for a minute before we like really dive, but can we for a minute acknowledge the beauty and hilarity that is Janine being the one to go across the monkey bars and her seeming to struggle with it, and it's like, girl, you're so like you're a grown up and these are child monkey bars. Like, can't you just walk across them? Like walk with your arms up? Like, or are you still too short?
Listen. I will speak on behalf of all short people. We have no momentum. We have no force.
But no, like I'm just thinking like these are built for children, right? So they're not that high up off the ground. And if you're an adult, like can't you just like walk your feet on the ground and put your arms up
Listen,
and like grab the bars?
children are small, but they are light. They have the momentum to move themselves. Short people are both short and heavier. They got nothing to work with.
I don't know. Just listen, speaking as someone who's never been short in their life, I don't know what you're talking about.
I have been short all of my existence, and I have nothing to work with.
I'm not tall, but I'm average. So like I've never been tiny enough that it's been like, oh, I don't know what that feels like. You know, it would be even funnier than Janine on those, though, to be fair, if we're talking short kings. I would like to see Daniel Radcliffe do a set of monkey bars. Because that man is tiny AF.
Yes.
He is so small. I think it'd be funny.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or what would have been even funnier for this episode is if Jacob had to do it, because like there's average people, like average sized adults with child monkey bars can literally walk under the bars with their arms up, like I said, just walking like normal with the arms up and just put your arm on each bar, and that's literally going across the monkey bars. But Jacob is tall and skinny. Like I'd love to see him struggle to keep his legs out of the way enough to be able to manage it. Like it would have been hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways. Not the point of the whole episode, but like I just thoughts about playground stuff.
I did like that we are now at the point where we have to go. We have to come up with reasons for why these two people should not be together.
It's funny because I was watching the tail end of this with Karen, and she hasn't really watched since like early last season. And she looks and sees Janine and Gregory talking awkwardly to each other, and she goes, "Are they together yet?" And I go, "No, they're not." And she goes, why?" And I'm like, "Your guess is as good as ours." Like, we don't know why they're not together yet.
Reasons? I don't know.
I don't know. As long as it doesn't turn into 25 years like, Elliot and Olivia on Law and Order franchise, where we will never get them together until like the very last moment of the show ever existing, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, they're gonna walk off in the sunset together."
Mm-hmm. I also really enjoyed Mr. Johnson finding Ava's secret bathroom.
Yes. And she's like, "Oh, please tell me you didn't use it." And he's like, "Oh, I used it all over the place." I'm like, "Yes, Mr. Johnson."
Also, I did love him throwing away a key. Be like, I don't need this key, and that key opens the school. And you're like, this is why you don't throw away keys.
Of course, he's the one that would do that. Like, of anyone in that school, he's the one that would do that.
Yeah. Never throw away a key. You never know when you need a key.
And I like the comment where he's like, "Well, we could just keep it locked and just go home." And Ava's like, "Oh no, I've been trying that for years. You think it would work? You think it works?" It's like, girl, you really do not want to do your job. Like, I love that about you.
So speaking of Ava. I love that they have to like put Ava to the side because so much of the early episode doesn't work if Ava is actually doing things.
Yes.
Because Ava will bully someone into doing the things that she wants to do. So they have to like sideline her.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the episode won't work.
I love that they do that on a regular basis. Like, this dynamic of the show doesn't work if there's not someone there to prevent Ava from doing something.
Right.
The whole time. And like at the beginning of this season when Ava was trying to be good at her job, I was like, oh, please don't let this last. Please don't let this last, because the show isn't the show without Ava being mediocre to terrible at her job. Like, we need a failure in order for it to work.
Right. Yes. Also, I continue to really enjoy the runner of Jacob hates Mr. Morton for reasons that are fully undisclosed. But he is the worst, so...
He's just like, glares at him. He's just like...
so much.
Jacob, you are so petty. Like, I love you. You're so petty. The great thing about Jacob is that, like, he's definitely one of the better examples of white men. However, he is still prone to being petty and extremely passive aggressive. But that makes him even more charming, and I don't know how. But it does.
Yes. Oh. So next week is the season finale, I think.
Yes, it is.
Which, didn't we just start the show? Did we just start? 13
it only had 14 episodes this season.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of the show. It's funny because next week is finales for like pretty much every other network television show.
Yeah, I mean,
except for ABC. I think ABC's is the week after, but still, like, we're winding down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone still has to break for the summer because the fall schedule stops for no man.
Right, exactly. But it's funny because it's like, they're like, normally it doesn't feel weird that a show's ending in May and then coming back in September or October. But like, because most shows didn't start till January, we're like, excuse me, what? We're coming back so soon? That's
doing?
Insane. But like, our brains are being rewired to think that that's insane when it's normal behavior.
No, yeah. No, we had the same thing during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like, I remember like the CW did this in particular of like, or have these shows stop here, and then like 3 months later they're gonna come back and do like a whole other season, a full season, and you're like, that seems like so much TV, and not like that's just a normal schedule of TV.
Right. Because like, I was looking to see, because the Law and Order shows ended this week, and so like, I was looking because I typically on a season finale review I put at the bottom when they're coming back, as long as we generally know like when they'll come back. And so I was like looking, and I was like, surely Law and Order is going to come back in like January, because like they have to have time to like film stuff. And then it says no, fall 2024. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's so soon. And then I'm like, no, Mads, that is normal TV behavior.
That is normal TV turnaround.
Normal television behavior. And I was just like, oh man, my brain is so fucked right now. Oh boy. Anyways, but
all right. So that's it for this week. Next week, we have Evil and My Adventures with Superman coming up. I don't think we're going to talk about that next week, though.
Is My Adventures with Superman coming back next week?
It comes back on... No, not next week. No, wait. Yes.
It comes back... Hold on.
It comes back on Friday. So, probably not.
Oh, okay.
Probably not.
No, we'll probably talk about it.
We might talk about Evil next week. We probably won't talk about My Adventures with Superman. But we do have that planned.
Yeah, Evil comes back on Thursday, so we could technically talk about...
On Thursday? Doesn't that come back on...
Yeah, it comes back on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I just did my what to watch on TV, so I think I would know.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Thursday, May 23rd, Evil.
Oh, no, then My Adventures with Superman comes back on Saturday. So we're definitely not talking about that.
Okay.
I was confused.
Yeah, we're not going to be talking about that.
I was looking at the date, and I was like, today's still Friday. No, it is Saturday now.
Yeah. Okay, so... That makes sense.
Yeah, so we will be talking about Evil next week, probably. But until then, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at DorothyNYC89, Instagram at DorothyNYC89, and on Tumblr at MadsWorld15.
Nice. And you can follow me on Twitter at @DrewKoenig, and you can find me on Blue Sky at DrewKoenig. And you can follow podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Tumblr at Not Another TV Podcast. Be sure to find our poll for the GOAT bracket, which will be into its final round when you're listening to this, probably. And you can find previous episodes of the podcast on Apple and YouTube, along with our full directory at libsyn.com/NotAnotherTVPodcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And you can subscribe and leave us a review. And be sure to email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, whatever you'd like to send our way. Till next week, please don't forget, don't go in the ocean. Not your business. Goodbye.
Goodbye.